Okay, so I'm going to factor this. It has two terms, so I'm going to look for the greatest common factor first. So the greatest common factor between my terms x to the fourth and 6x cubed is x cubed. So if you have a variable, you always want to take out the lowest number. And then I'm dividing, I'm undistributing. So to get x to the fourth from x cubed, I need x. And to get x to the third from x to the, sorry, to get 6x to the third from x to the third, I need a 6. So these are my two factors. So this is yesterday's homework. Now I'm going to go back and put an equals 0 and an equals 0. So now that I have my two factors, I'm going to set this factor equal to 0. This will give me 3 solutions, but they're all the same. So if I cube root this, both sides of my equation, because that's how I uncube is I cube root. So the cube and the cube root are gone. So x is equal to the cube root of 0. X is equal to 0. Since I'm looking for 3 solutions, I can write it 3 times. It is not necessary to write it 3 times, but this way I can get all 4 of my solutions. My other factor is x plus 6. I'm going to set that equal to 0. Solving this one for x, if I subtract 6 from both sides, x equals negative 6. So here are my 4 solutions. I only need a minimum of these 2. So you can either write all 4, so these together, or I can just say x equals 0 and x equals negative 6. 4 solutions. So the exponent always tells me how. But I took this factor set equal to 0, this factor set equal to 0. Let's do another one. What other one should we do?
Number 33.
33. All right, so number 33, we have 7n squared minus n minus 8. So 3 terms. Is there a greatest common factor that goes into all 3 of these terms? I'm going to go with a no. So I'm going to make my product sum chart. Oops, it helps if you can see it. All right, so my product is always a times c. In this problem, that's going to be 7 times negative 8, which is negative 56. I'm looking for a product of negative 56, need a positive and a negative. And then my sum is always the b term, which here is negative 1. Now, don't think too hard. If they multiply together to give me negative 56 and add together to give me negative 1, it's going to be 7 times negative 8. All right, so there's always going to be a pair that works. So I'm going to take these 2 numbers and I'm going to divide them by my leading coefficient. Always divide by leading coefficient. So I have 7 and negative 8, and I'm going to divide them both by 7. This one doesn't reduce. The bottom goes up front, so I'm going to make that 7n minus 8. This one does reduce to 1 over 1, so that's going to be 1n, or just n plus 1. So here's my original, here's my factor. We good there? All right, so then I'm going to go back and say this equals 0 and then this equals 0. So I can use a 0 product property. So I have 2 different factors. I'm going to set this one equal to 0, n plus 1 equals 0. Solving it for n, I can just subtract 1 from both sides. So my n value is negative 1. Here is my second factor, 7n minus 8. So I'm going to set it equal to 0. This is a 2-stepper. To get my n value isolated, this is just a 1-step, here's a 2-step, so I'm going to add 8 to both sides, and then I'm going to divide by 7, so 8 over 7. I am perfectly fine with the reduced fraction. Improper, you can make this 1 and 1/7. It's not the prettiest decimal, but those are my 2. I was looking for 2. Those are my 2 answers. Okay, what else? Pick another one on the page that was challenging. $21. All right. So 7m squared minus 48m minus 64. All right. Got my calculator ready. Do I have a greatest common factor for 7, 48, and 64? The answer is no. So I'm going to make a product sum chart. So my product is always A times C, which would be 7 times negative 64, which is negative 448. What? That's too big of a number to do. Actually, small, but. And then my B number is negative 48. When in doubt, you can always write them all out. But let me just look at this one right here. Sometimes it helps to start with what we have. So if I do 7 plus negative 64, it doesn't give me negative 48, but it kind of gives me a starting point to go from. So I'm just going to list them out. I'm going to start at 7. So 7 times negative 64, that was negative 57. So 8 goes into 2, 448. 448 divided by 8 is 56. So I'll make this a negative 56. If I add these together, I get a negative 48. So a small hint, like I always like, if with large numbers, 448, positive or negative, I always take the ones that I actually multiplied. And if it's like somewhere in that close range, then I either like make one less or make one more and kind of go from there. So these are my two numbers. So I have 8 and negative 56. But if you write them out, you will find them eventually. I promise. You'll find them eventually. I won't ask you to factor something that won't be factorable. All right, so I take these and I'm going to divide them by my leading coefficient, which is 7. This one doesn't reduce. Put the bottom part up front. So this is 7m plus 8. This one does reduce, negative 8 over 1. This will be 1m minus 8. So now I've factored. I'm going to go back and say equals 0, equals 0. I have two factors. I'm going to set them each equal to 0. So here it's two-stepper. I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. And then divide by 7. There's one of my solutions. And then m minus 8 equals 0. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And I'm good. Now, this was not the prettiest number, but it will still give me 0 if I plug it back in and check it out. Let me show you. So 7 times, and then I have a fraction of negative 8 over 7 squared. Looking back at the original. Minus 48 times negative 8 over 7 minus 64. And it does give me 0. And I can do the same for positive 8. So you should be able to check all of these answers and get 0. All right, number 12. All right, number 12. X to the 4th plus x to the 3rd. So I'm going to be looking for 4 solutions here. My greatest common factor is x to the 3rd, and then I'm left with x plus 1. So I have factored. Set this equal to 0, set this equal to 0. So here's one factor. So if x to the 3rd equals 0, I can go through and cube root both sides. So I can say x equals 0 the 3 times. Here, my x plus 1 equals 0. So if I subtract 1, x is equal to negative 1. So I'm good with 1 0 and a negative 1, or I'm good with all 3 zeros and a negative 1. Either way. What else? Any other questions you'd like to work together? Any questions on the zero product property? Do you remember this from Algebra 1? You did this in Algebra 1. Monday's lesson is new. Everything else in this whole unit you did in Algebra 1. It's just reinforcing because quadratics are kind of a big deal. $36. All right. We have, big numbers, 28 b squared. I just like b's in math problems because my 6's look like b's, and then sometimes like, is that a b, is that a 6? I don't know. All right, so greatest common factor between these 3 does exist, and it is 4. So look for a greatest common factor first, especially if you have large numbered coefficients. So Riley, all 40 problems need to be done by Monday, factored and solved by Monday. I was stalling so I could do 192 divided by 4. 4, plus 48b plus, I should know 144 divided by 4, 36. So I'm going to have a 4, and then I'm going to have 2 parentheses here. So I'm going to come up to the side. My product is going to be 7 times 36, which is 252. And then my sum is going to be 48. So 7 plus 36 is 43. So 7 times 36 gives me 48, where the sum is 43. So I'm pretty close. I'm going to go up 1. So let's try 8. So 252 divided by 8. Oh, 252 divided by 8. Oh, doesn't go in. Let's try 9. So 252 divided by 9 is 28. And I add them together, I get 37. I went the wrong way, so let's try 6. So 252 divided by 6 is 42. When I add them together, I get 48. So, little trick. Again, big numbers. Try those numbers, and then try one more. It got smaller, so I need to get bigger, so I went 1 less from that 7, and it worked out. Okay, so then I have my 6 and my 48. I'm going to divide by my leading coefficient of 7. The 4 is not being factored. The 7b, 7b squared plus 48b plus 36 is. So divide these by 7. So the 6 over 7 doesn't reduce. So it's going to be 7b plus 6. And what you know, I have a b and a 6 in the same factor. And then my 48 over 7. What's going on here? What's going on here? Oh, you guys got to catch me on my mistakes. It's 6 and 42 with a sum of 48. So 42 over 7 will be 6 over 1. So that's going to be b plus 6. All right, so there's my factoring. Now I'm going to set this equal to 0 and set this equal to 0. I actually have 3 factors here. I only need 2 solutions, so one of these is not going to give me a solution. But I'm going to set all 3 equal to 0. So 4 equals 0. That is not going to give me an x solution. Don't need it. So if there's no x in there, it's not going to give you a solution, or a b here. Then I have 7b plus 6 equals 0. I can subtract 6 from both sides and then divide by 7. So I get a negative 6 over 7 as a solution. And then if my b plus 6 equals 0, I can subtract 6 from both sides, and b is negative 6. Okay. So I feel that's some good examples, things that are on the homework. If you have a specific question you want to ask, feel free to send me a Canvas message or a remind message, and I will get back to you. But all 40 need to be factored, and all 40 need to be solved by the time you come back to school on Monday. Okey dokes. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.